Hello, my name is Valkyria, and this is my project for the Green Burial Cemetery in Killaloe, which is the hometown of our professor Eli Paddle. And when Eli presented this project to us, he was telling us that as a kid, on his way back home from his friend's house, he could take a shortcut through the cemetery, but it was too dark and scary, so he would just take the long way. And in movies or TV shows, we always see these representations of cemeteries as terrifying or haunted places. But when I think of a cemetery, I think of the Day of the Dead in Mexico. Everything is covered in flowers, it's so colorful. We have candlelight dinner, there is mariachi playing music, families laughing, and just celebrating life. So that's what I want to convey with this design: calm rather than distress. Instead of having a sterile landscape with nothing more than turf grass, I want to cover the place with flowers and create this very unique experience because we are catering to environmentally conscious individuals and their loved ones. So, what better way to celebrate their lives than by creating a final resting place that will support other lives, local wildlife such as birds, deer, and insects? I want to include a gathering space with a small stage so people can listen to some music or spiritual services, so people will be able to connect not only with nature but with each other and with the place. Creating this sense of belonging is very important for people to respect and care for the place. Another way to reinforce this sense of place could be to display the work of some local artists, which would also provide interest in the landscape. The first thing that I noticed on the site is the large wooded area to the south and east to the property. Also, where does the sun rise and set? In many cultures, the sun path is very meaningful because it symbolizes death and rebirth. So I wanted to do something with that, and I thought shade could represent death and light rebirth. So the entrance could be to the west where the sun sets, and we could have a shaded pavilion, then a pergola to transition from shade to light, and finally a paradise garden to symbolize the passage of souls to paradise. These gardens are originally from Persia, and their layout is usually four gardens separated by waterways that represent the four rivers of paradise mentioned in the Quran. So far we have our welcome pavilion with the pergola and the paradise garden. We are keeping the existing grave markers, and I didn't include a parking lot because the idea is to park on the side road, but I thought it was important to have a small bay or motor lobby to drop off visitors with restricted mobility. I included three sections for the graveyard area with secondary paths and seating areas. Then there is the gathering area with a stage and seats, and finally the art route with a path that leads into the existing wooded area. Here we can see the typical width of the principal and secondary paths. Between the path and the meadow there's 30 cm mown edges, also called beauty strips, to make the paths look tidy and make people feel comfortable, because it signals that a landscape is actively being cared for. Now, the graveyard area will be covered by a wildflower meadow, and secondary paths were inspired by the work of Marianne Boswell, whose sky spirals were in turn inspired by the ancient labyrinth layout of the Chartres Cathedral. And the circular design of the project was inspired by the cyclical nature of life. And the planting plan was designed to maintain the existing wooded area while introducing some popular trees and conifers to foster this dynamic succession of growth. The existing plants are mostly pioneer species, which means they are the first ones to grow after a disturbance such as a fire, but their lifespan is short. So we introduce the popular trees that have a fast growth rate and will provide shade, while conifers with a slower growth. Native plants were selected to provide habitat and food sources for local wildlife, and I included some native willow trees as an alternative to European weeping willows, which are known for their symbolism of grief and sorrow, but in many cultures they also represent immortality because they can endure heavy damage. And although the native species have less pronounced weeping habit than the European ones, they allow us to add interest to the design in a way that aligns with our environmental values. For the wildflower meadow, I selected a seed mix from St. William's Nursery and Ecology Center, designed to support endangered grassland birds in Ontario, providing habitat and food with a variety of grasses, sedges, and wildflowers. The cool season grasses grow in the spring and provide cover for the nests, while the wildflowers and warm season grasses offer food and color after the nesting season. These plants not only support birds, but many other pollinators such as native bees and butterflies.